Hello students, welcome back. So today we are going to start with a very interesting chapter, Stephen Hawking, which is chapter number 6. So Stephen Hawking was a British physicist, chose understanding of the universe as his field of study. He came up with a theory about the origin of the universe. So students, he was a famous physicist who came up with the theory of how the universe was actually created. He propounded, what do we mean by propounded here students? He narrated or gave or discovered that the universe began with a big bang. So there was a big bang and after that the universe was actually created. He also declared that the universe would end up as a huge black hole. So what is this black hole, student? A black hole is far out in space. Repeat. A black hole is far out in space. It is dark because it does not reflect light, but sucks light inside. So it is a huge black hole which sucks the light inside. You can look upon a black hole as a light guzzler, but it is not called by that name. So it is not called by the name of a light guzzler, but names often end up as misnomer. So what do we mean by misnomer here, students? Which means that there is no certain name for a particular thing. Things of a Sunayan with a scorned or a Sundar who is as ugly as a Todd. No black hole has a hole. In reality, it is tightly packed with matter and hence very dense. The forecast, so what do we mean by forecast? It means claims. So claims by Stephen Hawking of the origin and likely end of the universe was truly sensational. Most physicians found much wisdom in his words. A few held other views, but even they agreed that the theory projected by Stephen Hawking was worth further studies. That was something that pushed him into limelight. Till then, very few have seen Hawking. Few still knew of the tremendous odds set in his path. So what do we mean by tremendous here, students? It means hard. The fact is that Hawking is totally incapable of moving on his own and spends most of the time on wheelchair. So students, Stephen Hawking is completely paralyzed and he spends most of his time on wheelchair, but still he became a famous physicist by his hard work. He has been devastated by a rare and incurable motor neuron disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or ALS for short, encased in the spinal cord nerves run from the brain center to various parts of the body. They are communication channels of the body. So long as they are healthy, every limbs or every organ functions well. ALS hampers that. So the disease which Stephen Hawking actually had, ALS. So students, ALS, the disease which Stephen Hawking actually had, it stops all the functions inside the body, and that's why a person is confined to a wheelchair. Stephen Hawking was a victim of this malady. So what do we mean by malady? Of this disease. Born on January 8, 1942, repeat, in Oxford, England, Stephen was a normal child. Of course, while he was at school. Born on January 8, 1942 in Oxford, England, Stephen was a normal child. Of course, while he was at school, there were occasional hints of future troubles. So, he used to have occasional troubles even in his school, even in his childhood, but no one realized till then. Stephen often found it hard to coordinate his movements. He cannot throw a ball at a target. He missed even simple catches or direct shots. His handwriting remained sloppy. So what do we mean by sloppy here, students? Very unwritten. His handwriting remained sloppy. So what do we mean by sloppy here, students? It means unmatched. So he would scribble. He couldn't write. His teachers tried his best. His teachers tried their best to help him write better. Then they gave up in despair. So what do we mean by despair here, students? It means in sadness they gave up. All the teachers who were working hard on Stephen's condition, they actually gave up after a while. They did not know what made his coordination so poor. Nobody knew of the silence yet steady speed of ALS. Stephen Hawking realized that all was not well with him when he was in third year of Oxford. He says, I seemed to be getting more clumsy. So in his third year of college, he realized that he was becoming clumsier and fell over once or twice for no apparent reason. So what do we mean by apparent here, students? For no real or logical reason that he seemed to know about. In 1962, he moved to Cambridge to work for a PhD. By then, his movements were often weird and gawky. So, weird and gawky, which means that he couldn't move, and because all his nervous system broke down because of the disease ALS. His father noticed this abnormality and had the boy examined by a specialist. So, his father took him to a specialist now. He was subject to several tests. So, several tests were run on him to identify what was he suffering from actually. A team of doctors looked at the result and concluded that he was afflicted by ALS, for which there is no known cure. So, students, Stephen Hawking was suffering from a disease for which they had no cure for. Doctors had no cure for this kind of disease. So, the doctors did not hold out any hopes for him. He would survive maybe for 3 or 4 years. So, doctor gave this verdict that he is only going to survive for 3 or 4 years. Stephen Hawking bit his lips. So, what do we mean by this, students? Bit his lips means he got nervous to listen to this thing that he is only going to live for 2 to 3 years, and after that he is going to die. Threw his hands clumsily around. It took him quite some efforts to regain his poise. So, what do we mean by poise? It means his confidence in himself. Then he compared his fate with that of a boy who was in the hospital with him. The boy was suffering from leukemia, blood cancer, and died. So, now Stephen Hawking started comparing his fate with the boy he saw in the hospital who was suffering from leukemia. So, leukemia is a kind of a blood cancer, students, and so died soon. I am alive, Stephen Hawking mumbled. So, what do we mean by mumbled? He whispered that at least I am alive for 2 to 3 years. So, let's live up to all these years that are left with me. His face gaining a gleam. So, what do we mean by gleam? He started smiling. He actually became happy that he has some amount of time left with him. So long as there is life, there is hope. Hope sustained Hawking and infused courage into him. He returned to Cambridge and resumed his research work. So he came to Cambridge again and resumed all the research work that he was handling. Music lifted his spirits. So he started playing music, learning music. He resolved, if I am going to die anyway, I might as well do some good. So now he is saying that if I am going to die anyway, I might as well do some good. That resolution worked wonders for him. He found to his surprise that he was enjoying himself more than ever before. He was young. He fell in love with Jane Wilde, who responded to his love. So Jane Wilde also started loving him. But love knows no barriers. The two got engaged. So they both got engaged and he applied and secured a research fellowship at Cambridge. Now that he had a steady income, the two decided to get married. Hawking's worked in the field of theoretical physics. His health deteriorated. So what do we mean by deteriorated? Declined. His health started declining from that point with the passage of time, but he gained more recognition as a brilliant scientist. Jane, his wife, made every effort to make his life comfortable. The couple's happiness knew no bounds when they had their first child. 2 more children followed. So he had 3 children. So now he had 3 children because 2 more children followed. The children brought immense joy to their lives. But then Stephen Hawking had been given the post of Lucasian Professor of Mathematics. The chair created in 1663 was held by Sir Isaac Newton. So before him, Sir Isaac Newton used to sit on this chair, and now Stephen Hawking also got this place. Stephen Hawking now came to be recognized among the leading physicists of our times. He participated in seminars and meetings and conferences and delivered lectures on the universe and his understanding of its origin and possible end. His book, A Brief History of Time, became a bestseller. So did his last book, Black Holes and Baby Universe, and other essays. So he wrote so many essays, students, and books with it. So till 1974, Hawking was able to feed himself and also get in and get out of bed. So his condition started becoming a little better day by day. Then came years of gradual slip into reduced ability to manage his body. So his health condition started declining from that point. In 1985, he caught pneumonia, underwent a throat operation and lost his voice ultimately, students. That was a severe blow, so that made him sad, very sad, and everyone in the family, they all were sad to see this condition of his. He could no longer dictate his notes, nor could he hold debates in his peers. So what do we mean by peers here, students? With his friends, families, he couldn't speak in front of them because he has lost his voice ultimately. This future looked bleak, but he refused to put down. He felt he was equal to any man. His attitude to life is best reflected in his observation. So what did he observe, students? He says it is very important that disabled child could be helped to blend with the others of the same age. How can one feel a member of the human race if one is set apart from an early age? So now Stephen Hawking is saying that we should blend the children who are disabled so that they feel no less than a student who has every function of their body working. It is a form of apartheid, he said. He set himself to prove that he could still operate successfully as a professor. He says, for the time, the only way I could communicate was to spell out words letter by letter by raising my eyebrows when someone pointed to the right letter on the spelling card. So now he is struggling with all the disabilities he is facing, students, and he is saying that he used to read letter by letter by raising his eyebrows when someone pointed to the letter on the spelling cards. So he couldn't speak, so he used to use all the gestures of the eye movements to tell people what actually he wants. This was too time consuming. So everything was too time consuming to tell people by his gestures. So what did he do next, students? Let's see. If only he could communicate faster. The answer came from the Walt Woltowitz, a computer expert working in California. So this computer expert, he used to work in California and he came up with a device. He prepared a special computer program now called Equalizer. It allowed Stephen Hawking to select words from the list of words on the computer screen. Then came a portable computer and speech sympathizer, which enabled him to dictate up to 15 words per minute only, students. And it was a huge achievement for Stephen Hawking because now he can communicate faster by using this device, which was made by this computer engineer Walt Woltowitz. That was truly fantastic. One could almost imagine him chuckling to himself. So what do we mean by chuckling here, students? Laughing to himself, and he is joyous, he is happy now, and he is saying, ALS, do thy worst. One cannot put me down. So he is saying, ALS, my disease, do thy worst. Please do everything you can do to put me down, but still I will lift myself up. Stephen Hawking continued to be in the midst of research and study, participated in seminars and lectures to students. Honors and awards have been justifiably his. The Royal Society elected him a fellow. The Queen made him in 1989 a Companion of Honor. So he was given this honor, which is called the Companion of Honor, by the Queen herself. Wherein lies the secret of Hawking's success in the face of such heavy odds? His never say dying spirit beating all kinds of odds. So this brings us to the end of the chapter, students. I hope you all enjoyed and learned so much from the life of Stephen Hawking. Thank you.